Hey, everybody. I hope everyone's having a great night tonight, and welcome to another well-read review. It's been a little while, been a minute, but I just saw all of you yesterday. We hung out, did a drunk stream for Unzipped, but now we're back to business, and business is booming. So I've been looking forward to doing this book for a long time, honestly. Vaughn is probably one of my favorite creators in CG. We reviewed his earlier work here, Monster MD, and this was going to be a really big project. When it was first announced, he's been promoting it for quite some time, and the pages looked great. So, Terror in the Trenches, there's a lot of lore in this story, so buckle up, guys. We've got a lot to go over. Here to help us on this journey and make sure that we're staying safe is our stewardess, Twitless.
Are you serious? That's my intro? I'm done.
Yes. He was supposed to say, everybody put your seats up, lock your trays. All right. And of course, we've got our co-pilot. We've got Mr. Matt C.
Good evening, everyone. We're going to be cruising at 30,000 feet this evening.
Yes.
Looks like a mostly cloudy day in Detroit, but we'll be having smooth sailing, so buckle up.
Stormy weather with the tears of Twitless on the horizon. And this is going to be our thing throughout the whole review. Well, to save the stream, we have, of course, Matt Fowler.
Shigama, what's up, chat?
There
Hey,
he
bud.
is.
So welcome. We'll give Twitless a minute to compose himself.
Oh, no.
Yeah. Are you ready?
I don't know. Are you ready to be civil?
I am so civil. You have no idea. I forgot to say hi to the chat. Sorry. Christopher John, in early. Hello. Good to see you. And Darko D13. Evil will know monotone voices again. Yes. Indeed.
Sounds about right.
The book was drenched in evil. From just looking at the images, there's a lot to unpack here in this story. From what I could see, I mean, this is like a golden age property. It's been around, well, so it went public in 1980. Does that mean the original character was first published in 1880? Because it takes 100 years for something to go public domain. Am I right on that?
Yeah, what's up with that? Did any of us do our homework on the history of this IP?
It's not 100. It's like 75, and that might have been before the Sonny Bono extension.
What's up,
So
JD?
Hey, JD.
it used to be much less. So it might have kicked in before they started. Because a lot of the extensions that made it as long as it is had to do with I think it was Mickey Mouse.
It was created in 1941 by Richard
1941,
E.
yeah.
Hughes.
Oh,
and
wow.
So it was
John
around.
Gabrielson.
So if it went public domain, and I think the original was around 50, which would have put it around 91. And then I don't know when the Sonny Bono extension happened to make sure that Disney could have Mickey Mouse for another 25 years. So
I've
Well-
just got it pulled up to the credits page, of the book. It says it right there, when Terra was created and by who. And also credits Lady Satan, who's another public domain character that's in this book. She was 1941, and I guess those are the only two in here.
And there's been several reimaginings of the character as well. Since it is public domain, a few other publishers picked it up and put their own spin on it.
He's the main character of the Dynamite Project Powers or Project Heroes or whatever it's called, where Alex Ross has painted a lot of these Golden Age characters, and they did a whole new re-release of stories by them in a modern style.
Well, I mean, I guess without giving too much away until we jump hard into the review, how did Vaughn handle, all of this history with the character? Did he address any of it, or did he just kind of start from scratch?
he's going his own road. The original character was in the Golden Age had even different names for like the love interests and stuff. So it's very clearly, I think he's taking the foundation of the character or certain elements of it and then doing his own thing. I've not read the other reimaginings of Black Terror, so there could be maybe one of those in there, or elements from that. I do know from the Golden Age comics that I was able to read, this is a very different reimagining.
Oh, neat.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Do you know anything about the Golden Age side of this, Matt? I understand you're a fan of the Golden Age.
Yeah, it's basically all your favorite DC and Marvel characters are ripoffs of these older Golden Age characters who are free to use. You know, like you can use them the same as you would Sherlock Holmes or whatever. You know, so remember when Alan Moore combined a bunch of public domain characters and made the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, right? Which was like the Invisible Man and fucking whatever Sean Connery was. I forget, some African game hunter dude. I forget his name.
Quatermain.
Quatermain. Alan Quatermain, right.
Yeah.
And you know, Captain Nemo and shit like that, right? So you can also take public domain characters and make your own, like Justice League, or in Tiger Blue we had our own Super Sons kind of Teen Titans thing going, and they're just as good, you know. Judex is just as good as like the Shadow or Detective Comics. You know, it's kind of a way for us to scratch an itch, you know, like clearly visually this Terror looks fucking line for line like the Punisher, right? You know, black suit, white skull, fucking, you know what I'm saying, right? So you get to do the Punisher without having to do the pun. You know what I'm saying? So they're kind of fun for that if you pick the right Golden Age character and give them the right kind of reboot. And
this is Black Terror back in his I think this is his first appearance. And what's interesting about it is he definitely has that skull and crossbones motif going on. But aside from that, he is, speaking of ripoffs, he is a carbon copy of Clark Kent. Right down to the whole dynamic of, I pretend to be kind of a coward, and the love interest doesn't, you know, she expressed disdain for me because I secretly have to be the superhero. But at the same time, in my superhero guise, I'm going to totally, you know, be macking on her. So that whole dynamic lifted straight from, you know, Action Comics and Superman, the OG, as it were. But doing so with slight variations. So you've got almost a little bit of Batman in there because he's got a teenage sidekick. He has the sort of like I'm trying to kind of strike an edgier vibe regarding some of the aesthetics. Although in terms of what he actually does, it's very, I would say it's actually pretty safe for the Golden Age. He just kind of like, you know, punches the bad guys. He doesn't kill them, really. So, you know, there were characters in the Golden Age.
Doesn't eviscerate them or kick their heads off.
Decapitate.
No, yeah.
Cut them in half.
This was the age of Fletcher Hanks, who did have characters who would just obliterate their enemies. But for all of his scariness in the initial Golden Age stories that I read, at least, it was pretty safe and very much a copy of Superman. But that is not the direction that Von Klaus is going with this. He's taking this and he's using it as a springboard to tell a different kind of story.
Now, there are issues where Kid Terror and the Terror run over Japanese soldiers with steamrollers and shit, too, though. Like when you, you look into it.
Well, so Von Klaus has definitely taken it his own way and with force. He's already picked up 1,600 backers on this project and almost hit six figures, young lady, at 96K.
Nice.
Wow.
Yeah, definitely the work spoke for itself. And people wanted to see exactly what Vaughn would deliver with this project. So the imagery looks great.
In spring of 2022, which that's nothing to sniff at that time. I mean, it's, you know, he's in a rarefied bunch getting basically six figures, but doing it in halfway through 2022 is even harder. So kudos.
Well, and he didn't get a lot of big pushes on the bigger channels. I don't remember him being a mainstay on
kind of doing his own thing, wasn't he?
Yeah, yeah. So he's kind of doing this under the radar, kind of like Rocaford
Hmm.
level creator, and able to hit those funding goals. So that's great. But I guess scrolling down just a little bit, let's see what people were getting for their backing. It's a lengthy book, so 78 pages. Dark Avenger action epic, the first in a brutal trilogy. So there's more to look forward to from this project. What did you guys think? Did this evoke uh, trilogy arc vibes for you when you were reading it? Did you think that this was something that was setting up much larger storylines to be picked up in the future?
Now that's a good question. Yeah, because I think something we're going to talk about a lot here is how much gets done in issue 1.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, to
Wait,
me,
Fowler, what were you?
I,
Yeah, you
I,
take that.
I missed the trilogy part in the campaign because I got just a review copy from you guys, and I didn't catch the volume 1 part. Like, so I was reading this like thinking that there'd be some kind of, wrapping it up a little, not completely or whatever, I guess, but it really does kind of give you blue balls, leave you hanging a little bit.
Oh.
Especially for the page count, because it's like, damn, this is a lot of pages. Like, I'm going through this. Okay, it's just, yeah. Overall, like, kind of like I don't want to wait another year. It's just the pacing. That pacing for the trade shit and crowdfunding is just kind of wearing thin, I guess.
I have a lot to say on that subject, but I kind of want to save it before. So I feel like
how do we pace this out?
Yeah,
lots of
we want to give
blue balls going around tonight.
Yeah.
I feel like we should give a brief summary of kind of what happens generally in the story before we.
John says that's why I keep a storyline self-contained in a graphic novel. Interesting takes. And Linkovich is happy that you're alive. So yes.
Oh, hey, Link.
Isn't it
All
great? Right. We found the Fowler.
You just have to know where to send the link. That's all.
Yeah, the secret channel.
We had
call him on the
to,
bat
yeah,
phone.
we had to put his pictures on the back of milk cartons and everything.
I had to shine a signal into the sky, to summon him. Twitless, you go ahead with the summary because I know you wrote one.
I did, but you always make fun of it. So why didn't someone else to give it a shot?
You are
then?
so sensitive tonight. How can you talk about a murderous, rampaging book like this and whine the whole time?
You keep insulting me. Okay, fine, I'll do it. All right.
Thank you.
Dr. Bob Benton is not your typical pharmacist. For one, he's aged pretty well in comparison to his World War II comrades. The secret to his good looks? He's actually the Black Terror, a superhero who uses his strength and terror gas to show Nazis their greatest fears. But when the ghosts of the past come back to haunt New York in a very real way, the Black Terror must gas up again to save the day from the Black Reich. Find out what happens next in Terror in the Trenches, Volume 1.
I think that was pretty good. That about covered it.
It's fantastic.
Hire me to write copy at this point is all I'm going to say to these creators, because I have written your copy on every one of these review streams. So. I am hireable.
We don't have the funds to actually pay you for any of the work that you do.
I'm talking to the creators. I'm just saying, next time you have a campaign, I will write copy for you.
They don't have the funds either. Actually, nobody wants to pay you anything.
Yeah.
That's what I'm getting.
No money.
Okay, I am done. That's it.
So Fowler, oh yeah, we'll let him vent. You were saying, so you got blue balls from the experience. So now that you know that it was a trilogy, does that reframe your thinking of the entire book? Or do you still kind of feel like there were aspects of it that you wanted to see more fleshed out and explored more?
I mean, I like boss fights in my shit, and I don't know. I liked it. I like that's weird because I like almost everything about this. The visual is doing it for me. The Monica's take on Golden Age characters with the colorist they have, adding all this texture to everything and giving weight to Monica's very sparse line work. It's really dynamic, but almost animated style. So there's not when you see it in black and white, it's a lot of empty space, and Tiago really adds this layer of weight and grit to it that's fucking dope. I dig Vaughn's character designs, you know, the Cthulhu kind of themes with the terror mask when he's recharging in his throne room. The whole throne room lair located under the grave shit is pretty cool. You know, the whole thing has that Batman the Animated Series flavor for sure, and running a Golden Age character through that filter is very appealing to me. You know, like this shit was exciting. Like I like the way it looked. You know,
Von Klaus was also involved with the I think a lot of the design choices, because I think that's part of the credits is this is design. So I think that the Cthulhu thing you're mentioning that kind of like plays into the whole like terror and fear aspect of this character, which is a new spin for the character.
right.
His costume, which has gotten some updating, all of those. I think that's Von Klaus basically making those design decisions. It's a strong, slick, strong point for the project. I completely agree.
And Detonetta, the bomb chick, I like her design. She's got like a Harley Quinn kind of flavor that's really solid. It's visually impressive when she does the whole flasher bit with her trench coat and the dynamite and different explosives covering her naughty bits. Like visually, this was hitting on all cylinders for me.
And this is
It's
your
just
will.
overall the story stuff. It wasn't as tight as Monster MD is the only way I could describe it. Like Monster MD felt way more polished and just
Since we're talking about
beats
Well, one second.
a lot
So
better.
this is Matt's wheelhouse. So Matt, would you like to expound a little bit on what you thought of the visuals and some of the colors that were the palette used here, and the designs? What was your take on the whole experience?
Really solid. So I think he's got there's a colorist who's a different individual than the drawer, right?
Yeah, Tiago is his name.
Yeah, like Tiago did. Okay, so we've got the green smoke motif, right? I don't know if y'all noticed, but everything's kind of muted or in the warm spectrum for this comic, which kind of goes with like the Nazi motifs and and the city, I guess, is bombed out, so there's a lot of grays and stuff. There's a lot of blood. There's a lot of warm stuff going on, but which gives a lot of room for that green smoke to kind of balance, which is really fun. So there's some real pro comic colorist moves throughout this. It's pretty satisfying. Like it I think it's restrained on the color palette until he wants to go supernatural with it, when he wants to do the like, your darkest nightmare kind of thing. And or he just wants to splatter you with blood, which are both equally satisfying. But yeah, I mean, really, really strong on that side. Were you all feeling that too? Or
some of the design choices, given that this is all set in World War I or
II? It's post World War II, actually. It's 30 years afterwards, technically. So we're talking about 1970s, 80s, something like that.
Yeah, which I didn't catch at all. Like, it didn't feel like it, but I don't think he really cared. I don't know why it had to be 30 years. I was like, why can't it just be 5 years? You know what I mean? Because the vibe still feels just like.
I think that has to do.
It wasn't like anything uniquely 60s about the time jump or whatever, like to make it be there. Like there wasn't like a hippie protest or type shit, right? Like
the amount of time allows for two things, which is it allows for the opening scene with the older veteran, which allows for that idea that he's an older veteran who has not aged.
Fair.
Mm-hmm. It also allows for him to like have like a relationship that has, like I think his wife is passed at this point, and so like the passing of time there, and adding on those decades helps him do that. I do agree that there was nothing necessarily distinctly 60s or 70s about the project, about the book. I did have one thing to add to the aesthetics though that I'm on the fence on. on the one hand, this is a very slick looking project. I think it's also got a very modern. I say this with as much positivity as I can, but the art even reminded me almost of a webtoon, even Tumblr. You know what you'd see there a little bit, and in some of the choices being made. But that's something that that's where the trend of
it's not
art has led
mainstream
us.
comics. So, yeah, like this
Yeah,
person's
yeah.
coming from a background of like digital art first.
So
right?
there was that,
Yeah.
and there's and because of the
Loopy
kind of
shapes.
the kind of cartoony side, we're leaning more into caricature here, and that definitely appeals more to your teenagers, and so I felt like this could be, it could have been a good recommendation for a teenage experience comic, but the gratuitous violence. Like you can see it on the page right there. Like it's like people getting dismembered, heads cut off, people's like brains get shot out. It is like gratuitous gore, and it's like it created a cognitive dissonance, for a tonal dissonance for me, because I was like, okay, caricature, extreme violence. I'm not exactly sure where we are regarding the audience for this, and so that created it put me on the fence artistically. I don't know what you guys felt about that.
You don't think, like, do you get, so I've always thought he picked this illustrator in particular because he can get away with more violence and still get the soft R kind of rating. I feel, like it feels adulty, but not too adult, so he can go with more blood because of the cartoony approach. I just figured that was the calculus that Vaughn figured out in like 2019 when he did Monster MD and continued.
Could be. I'm just saying, for me, it feel, like I said, it made me feel kind of, like I said, put me on the fence there. There's dark gift complaining about the fence. But...
What about you, Fowler? Were you digging on the violence vibe, or did you feel also kind of off put by the contrast there?
I mean, I realized that mostly 42-year-old men read comic books. Like, kids don't really give a shit about this. And kids don't really give a shit about Golden Age characters. That's like some shit super nerdy comic book dudes get into after they've gone through and ran through all the Justice Leagues and X-Forces and shit, and like are looking for something and start getting into the history of stuff. Like when people start bumping the first Beastie Boys album or some shit. You know what I'm saying? It's like it's vital hip hop history. So only heads kind of really dive that deep and learn the shit, or old punk bands or whatever obscure niche thing you want to get into. So I mean, I think the violence is cool when you cut it with the Batman the Animated Series look, because for a 42-year-old dude who watched Batman the Animated Series and didn't like it to be toned down for kids because it was more mature than that, like seeing the ultra manga or OVA levels of violence. So I'm into it, but I mean, I'm not tricking myself that kids are buying this shit either, so
there's a lot of visual splendor from it as well, as you were mentioning earlier, Matt. So I think it lends to that quite heavily. So what's the storyline here then? What's the setup? Is this all just based in a single battle, or are we actually following this character's personal development?
It's like a cut between timelines. So like you've got this specific mission that's occurring in World War II, and then this modern day attack that's occurring, and we kind of cut jarringly back and forth between those throughout the book. I guess is the premise of what's going on here.
Does that feel like a gimmick, or does it actually lend substance to the character's development throughout the story?
It feels like a show, kind of, more than a comic book. It feels like something that would happen in a show,
Yes. I would say that it does a little bit of both. I would say Von Klaus does. I have a big structural problem with the way this book is set up. However, I would also be wrong. It would not be just to accuse. to not state that Von Klaus does know what he's doing in terms of using structural points to set up a narrative. And so the basic setup here is that we've got a intercut flashbacks of the Black Terror, essentially processing almost from an old grizzled war veteran with PTSD vibes, kind of a thing going on, and he's processing this past World War II trauma through the lens of a current recurrence of Nazi attack that happens in New York. And so what we see is in the past is essentially very much relevant to what's happening in the present. Because what he's going through emotionally, what he is thinking through, what the Black Terror character means to him, and what it has cost him essentially for his humanity when he was essentially a weapon in World War II. That all basically comes back when he has to take up the mantle again. And by intercutting that, Von Klaus is setting those two things juxtaposed next to each other. And that part, I think. That idea is got some it's got legs on it. I'm okay. I'm digging that.
Did either of you also pick up on that approach? Does it seem something that worked for you, Matt or Matt? The two Matts. Matt, see, you're quiet. What did you think of the story structure?
Yeah. Well, I'm thinking more about how. So it's 78 story pages, right? So basically 80. It's got. He does. I think he spends a hefty amount of time on backstory and laying out the groundwork, and I think that makes sense. I thought it was a two-parter. It makes more sense that it's a three-parter because and he gets through all of that and gives you a compelling motive for this main character to don the his cloak and stuff his face full of gas again by halfway through, and then the second half is a rather epic battle where you see someone who with this main character that you pretty much feel like he just cuts through everybody like butter. It's kind of hard to think of how you could challenge this person other than his ethical qualms and the tragedy of the loss of his wife. So that's kind of signaled in the beginning. Like the only way you can take this guy down is the issues he's struggling with on in his inner life, and that feels like its own little issue one, and that felt right in a lot of ways. In issue two, I'm trying to think, and help me if I'm missing something, guys, but like I'm trying to think. I feel like that side, I don't remember a lot about the ex-wife in the second half, in the back half.
She's basically a name, and then she kind of haunts him for a moment. So
Yeah.
we don't have a lot from her, and she's not the same character from the Golden Age story. So it's definitely
A-frame.
going in a different direction. I think her name was Jean Starr or something. In the Golden Age, so very, very different.
Yeah. So you kind of get a second. Story in a way, which is kind of interesting. And I think it's professionally handled, but I was surprised. Like we were talking in the green room chat about beforehand, and we should have done this on stream. But like I have less experience than Fowler or Twitless with mainstream comics, particularly superhero comics, so I don't understand all the pacing that you guys are much more used to, or what you can expect from people with superhuman powers battling it out. And I wasn't sure if people usually expect this kind of thing where you get the first half kind of does one thing and the second half sort of does the other.
So
but yeah.
So the thing is that like the initial like idea of it. So I think Von Klaus has a good idea. I think
Yeah.
where it started to go awry is that it went too far. It did too much. So, for example, there's a lot of internal monologuing going on in here, and some of
Yeah.
that's okay, but it got to the point where it got redundant. Like he started like even repeating at points, like things he said. And
Yeah.
there was a little bit I could see, like he partly had him repeat it so that he could like show a little bit of irony with it. But at the same time, it's like he's saying the exact same line that he said 20 or 30 pages ago, and he's doing the exact same kind of narration to himself for a second time, and in a story that structurally does not tell a full story. I feel like you don't have the time to burn to like repeat yourself. And so like as much as it's a strength and a weakness. It's a strength that we get this like internal development for the superhero, and he's narrating to himself, he's going through stuff, and that's cool. And it's intercut with some a flashback material. And so like I said, it's the technique itself is not what I have problem with, but it's the execution does lead to I think a lot of wasted panel space at the end of it, because we get like it's like 40 pages in before we finally get, oh, this is the actual conflict of the present. And then it's like, okay, we have some pacing issues here.
Can I mention one small thing just before we lose it? With the internal monologue, I was a little so like as I'm like catching up to Fowler and Twitless and being more like loving what comics does that's uniquely to the comics medium, you know, and isn't just like a storyboard or isn't just like a movie on pages, you know, like comics do particularly like peculiarly comics things. One of the things is I've learned to miss is the thought bubble. I know people thought it was cheesy, but like if you're gonna bring back a Golden Age character and you're gonna make it super hot and action packed and gory and awesome, maybe there's like and you're gonna put this much internal monologue in, which itself feels like almost kind of classic at this point to hear a character's thoughts this much. Like, why put it in a black box with white text? Why not put it in a thought bubble? You know, like, am I missing something that like he didn't draw it? Like, I don't know. Maybe that's a question for Eric Weathers, but
Or for Fowler. So, how did you feel?
Yeah.
Did this book overlap with like traditional superhero storytelling?
I mean, you know, nowadays comics have a lot less words in them. You know, before a lot of this free space on this page you're seeing right here, right? He's letting Monica do all the talking right here. You know, you see that cage and you've seen Batman, so you kind of know what the Batcave is. So your brain kind of fills in the blanks and kind of does all the work. In the old days, it'd be like with his lair several stories down, 50 feet below the city, in abandoned, you know, and it gets real like describe every fucking thing in the room type shit, right? So as a creator, you're kind of constantly trying to balance if you want to be too Claremonty with all the fucking words everywhere, or be real like Larry Hama Snake Eyes silent issue and kind of like accurately direct the action to let the reader and the artist do a lot of the heavy lifting.
I think he was leaning
just a balance, you know.
I think he was leaning Frank Miller here a bit. The internal monologuing and the sort of like, especially the sort of pondering on trauma, felt kind of, you know.
I feel like Miller would be talking about how wet the floor is and how damp the gravel is beneath this dude's feet and shit. The gravel's damp down here. Smells like corpses and 3-day-old. You know, whatever.
We get a little bit of that. That's what I'm saying. I think he's doing a little bit, maybe not quite that as much, but we do get some of that. Especially when he's flashbacking and talking about what it was like to be, you know, a weapon and killing these guys.
Well, Liam asks if the repetition was used to cement a theme, or do you think it came off as poor execution? Is it possible that
like the constantly going back and forth to the battle, that repetition, or what's he talking about?
Twitless's point.
Oh, okay. I
think it's a little bit of both. If I did see that he was trying to make a point with it, and like I said, the point was to actually create some irony. But when you're there was at least one moment where I was like, this line is almost straight repeated, and we're spending so much time repeating certain things and not getting to the story itself. I was painfully aware of things that kept us from the action in the present, which I think is honestly the more interesting part. I think you could have done a little less with the flashbacks and done more with the cool stuff that's happening now. But I'm assuming that's going to be what's the setup for book 2. Book 2 will probably be more, in the present, I imagine.
So it sounds like there was a big emphasis on building atmosphere and tone, and maybe that's where some of the repetition, introduced itself. Did you feel that way too? Did you want more story progression? You just feel like it was spending a lot of time just trying to immerse you without really getting on with the story. Any one of you can jump in.
Well, I'll go in and say, like, I think the pacing felt a little more cinematic, if that's the term, which means there's a lot of breathing room for kind of walking a character up and into and through different scenes, in and out of scenes, and let a scene go for 15 pages, and that's something that I'm more native to, that I kind of understand, and honestly, sometimes I use as a crutch with Kyrie, but so again, like, it's kind of interesting to take a classic character and you're kind of re-envisioning it from this kind of screenplay kind of pacing approach, and yet there's a lot of words, more words than it's not cinematically scripted, so I appreciate that.
I don't think there's that many words. We need to get you to read some more Claremont comics.
Oh my
god! We will show you what a wordy page looks like.
Well-Read keeps finding the silent pages. I didn't even I just assumed.
Well, I mean, there is a lot of these silent pages and a lot of splash pages and a lot of 2-page.
There are so many splashes.
Actually, you know what? This is on his IG. The Indiegogo, for some reason, like, these aren't lettered pages. Like, these were covered in text in Thought Balloons, if I remember right. These aren't silent pages.
No, he's saying something to his wife about his vow or something on this page, if I remember correct.
No, I take it back. These were heavy. These were heavy on the wordage, and yet not Chris Claremont. So, yeah. Anyway, I felt
Claremont knew how to pack.
What do you guys think about the pace?
Like I said, the pacing was just a lot of splash pages and a lot of 2-page spreads. And like, when I first started making comics, all I wanted to do was splash pages every, few pages and 2-page spreads and shit. And like, after 5 years, I realized about like the economy of page and like how like motherfuckers who are experienced like look down at splash pages more so than people who are like just kind of doing it. And there's several instances where there may be like 2 splash pages in a row, or it's not used even like once an issue, like every 20 pages to kind of be like, all right, the way I look at it is panel count is kind of like your metronome, right? And then your splash pages are kind of like when that builds up enough, you bust that nut, and that's that splash page, right? Like,
right? That. No, yeah, there's a rhythm to it, and the problem with the usage of the and I don't know if this is Von Klaus's scripting or the artist, but there were some spreads where sorry, Monica, there was a couple moments where it was like splash page, then like a page with maybe 3 panels, another splash, 2 splashes in a row.
Oh yeah, here when he's walking into the layers, 2 splashes back to back.
Yeah, and it's like the rhythm of a splash is tip for especially for superhero comics. The rhythm of a splash is you use it to hit your audience in the face with something. So often they can show up. Traditionally, they'll very often show up at the conclusion of an issue to hit you in the face to prepare you for the next installment. It's just kind of a little bit of a shorthand that superhero storytellers use a lot. But here it's used so much that I think it dilutes it. There were panels, there were pages where I was like, this was not necessary. You know, we were just being introduced to a bad guy doing kind of his normal kind of bad guy stuff, and it was another splash. And I was like, why do we need it was too many. Just kind of like there was too much of the internal monologuing. There's too much splashes. I think the book is got some strengths, but I think it is overindulging in its strengths, and that overindulgence is actually diluting the product.
All right, so let's maybe focus
like, because if you cut some story into like just 50% of these splash pages, we could have had him have a good fight with Sawbuck at the end, and I wouldn't have been left with blue balls. You know, like that's the way I look at it, because he doesn't get to fight the big bad. I don't know if I'm not spoiler alerts, but Chainsaw Man and him don't like fight in this at all. So I don't know, whatever. And that's just maybe me as a creator knowing too much about sausage and how it's made to kind of just be like, well, I would have done, you know, type shit too. So I don't know. It just felt like way too many splash pages, especially with the blue balls feeling of no final battle at the end, you know, to end the episode off, you know?
That's a good segue. That's where I wanted to touch on next. So let's discuss a little bit about the arc overall. Knowing that it's within the context of being the first part of a trilogy, where did the character start and end within this first issue? Did you feel it was self-encapsulated enough or too open-ended?
Well, it's kind of like a reverse arc. He goes from being the I won't fuck with killing anymore, vowed to my wife I'm just a straight up pharmacist and left the game behind, to like, let's get the knives back out and get back to my character from a long time ago. I wouldn't say like the character evolved as much as like, you know, John Wicked it, you know, or whatever, like time to go to work again or whatever type shit.
I'm thinking I'm back. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, so was it more the circumstances that then had an evolution? His environment, maybe the enemies that he was contending with, if not the character himself? Where did you feel like the story had growth throughout your experience in reading it and development? Let me know if these questions require a period of study.
No, I just talk. I'm trying not to talk a bunch, and like after I talk, let the next person go. You know.
Yeah, I'm trying to do the same thing. So
talk all you want, guys. Come on. This is the slums.
Okay, so all right. The can you ask that question again? I had a hard time following that.
Well, so you guys said that he's kind of a John Wick kind of character, and he's just jumping back into the action, and you didn't feel like there was a lot of development. So where did you feel like where exactly was the substance of the story? Where did you feel like you were learning new things about the environment, the villains, the characters?
So the development is all, like I said, it's that internal monologue. It's following Black Terror in his head as he basically goes on this journey of and essentially I'd say that the development is it's almost like he had paused development, kind of like a veteran might have dealing with PTSD that he's not fully developed or not fully gone through. So like he has that flashback of all those horrible experiences, and then he has a more normal life in America, back in New York, and but you can tell like he's sublimated the problems, and so he's never entirely dealt with them, I think, and so when he's brought back, I think what the real arc of the story is essentially addressing those old war wounds fully. That would be like, I think, the full arc for this character. And it's a little open-ended right now because it's, you know, he's dealing with his powers come from great violence and fear. And he's never fully dealt with that, you know, with either the trauma or the fear. And so now he's being put back into the mess. And so I feel like there's an opportunity for him to go one of two ways. One of them would be to actually grow outside of that trauma and find some peace. And that might be, I think, where Von Klaus is taking it. And the second one is for him to just lose it and become a monster. And so it's too early to say, but that's kind of where, and because we spend so much time in his head, that's where the bulk of the character development is focused on.
That's a really good point, because we do have the addition um of this guy getting back in the game, and then um sensing an echo of his ex-wife in the machine or something. Like there's some additional element going on that could be a personification of that sublimated, that suppressed angst and trauma that he lived through and participated in from World War II. Like there's something going on there, and it was very lightly touched. So I'm assuming it's gonna be much more of a feature of part two. But would you say like that's kind of signaling, I think, that we're gonna he's gonna go through a darker night of the soul than he did in the 40s, and there's going to be more growth, I think. But we haven't seen that growth yet. We're just being told we're
I mean,
it's
it
being
just
alluded to.
it kind of ends with him just like, yo, let's grind some meds. Like I would have liked to see
That's true.
like
That's true. That's the last time we see him, right?
like I would have liked to
yeah.
see
Where's the
that
turmeric?
gunshot put him more in jeopardy, or have him like more, you know what I'm saying? He's just laying there, like he doesn't even.
Yeah, he just
like,
wants painkillers.
Yeah, like I
that's-
would have liked to see him like crawling through the thing to like and leave it off if it is going to be a blue balls, and leave you hanging, like with him like really illustrating the stakes, you know, of that that like, let's grind some meds, dude. Like just seems real Sunny D like way to end 100 pages of this story, you know, like I don't
Actually,
know.
it's 78 pages, Fowler.
Oh, yeah, 78 plus the behind the scenes material or whatnot.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's what I meant by blue balls, though. That just seemed like a weird letdown. You know, I don't know. That's just me, though, I guess.
But you saw Bayonetta, the girl
Yeah,
with
not-
the gun stiletto heels. She got
Lady
tied up.
Satan, yeah. Yeah, and that was actually a good moment, because the first time she got introduced, she was a bit Mary Sue, and I was rolling my eyes. So to actually see her, she actually can like get herself in real trouble. That was a nice counter to that, because for a minute she was really irritating.
Student of God said, I liked the end because he is kind of up against the wall. No powers. Can't wait until part 2.
And the big cliffhangers for the sidekick, though. Like, that's, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's kind of just, I don't know. It just didn't hit. Yeah, that's what left me with definitely feeling like,
Maybe it's also because you didn't have a physical copy to give the Fowler test to. So maybe that also gave you some frustration there.
I hear the physical is really impressive. The trade dress is, and what do they call that? Spot gloss, I believe, that makes the letters real shiny, and the skull imprint, I believe, is also shiny. Yeah, that stuff all looks top notch. You know, great print quality. It looks like it turned out with.
Nice. All right, guys, let's I guess move into final thoughts, and we'll bring Vaughn on to have our discussion with him about the project. Matt C., why don't you start us off?
Oh man, you want to start with me? You don't want to you don't want to end on a happy ending?
End on a happy ending? Okay, yeah, let's start with the most miserable person on the panel, Twitless. Twitless, you're not having
who poisoned your wine today? Jeez.
I'm having coffee.
That must be it. Okay. Terror in the Trenches is a slick-looking product, has definite strengths to recommend it. In some regards, it easily rises to the top of indie products and even competes with mainstream work, especially in the artwork and the coloring.
Mm-hmm.
What holds this comic back is structuring and pacing. The structure of the story is lacking, in my opinion. It is lacking because we only have half of a story. This is due to the current panel budget. This holds back what would have been a much stronger recommendation from me. I think that at the end of the day, when you're given about 80 pages, I need more than half of a single battle scene. We're still halfway through the first battle scene. Like the enemies have attacked New York, and it just literally just ends in the half of the battle. And in manga, you can kind of get away with that because that releases about once a month. But for projects that release less than once a year, typically, it's just, I'm not okay with that, and I think it kind of needs to stop. I think we need to start pushing back and telling our creators to say, hey, give us more of a complete story. Even like The Empire Strikes Back, you have a beginning, middle, and an end. It does lead into the next installment. You can totally put in stingers and cliffhangers. That's fine, but I feel like if books, and I had the same problem with Mavericks, but I feel like it's like ending at the battle, halfway through the Battle of Hoth, and saying, "Come back next time for the next half of the Battle of Hoth." And it's just it really makes it hard for me to recommend the book due to that. Other than that, there's a lot that to recommend from this book, and I am interested in where it's going, and I will eagerly review the next installment. I just hope that some of the refinements can be made regarding the pacing and structuring in particular.
Fowler, would you like to give your final takes?
I have to give it an 8 out of 10, man. It's fucking visually impressive. And if I was blue balled, fuck it, at least I made it to the end. You know what I'm saying? A lot of these shits, you don't even want to go that far. And if he got me to the end to be like, oh, damn, I wanted to see this character fight with this guy and him be more injured, like that means he carried me that far, so I'll check it out more, man.
All right, Matt C.
Yeah, I think in some ways this felt like the sort of superhero comics I don't know, like if this is what, like, this is much easier for me to read than like an 80s Batman comic, I think, which is crazy to say. Chat can feel free to revolt, but like the pacing I kind of understand a bit more, even though we don't I am kind of disappointed that we don't get a full arc in these 80 pages. The 80 pages is certainly enough room to give that, particularly for superheroes, but like Von Klaus's writing, I think it's more than clever. It is kind of satisfying to see him kind of dance and play with his turns of phrases, and I think he's very polished with that. It didn't get annoying for me to see him be as creative as he was in dialogue and stuff. So that was really nice, and and I mean, visually the art team is on point. So like, yeah, other than the understandable issues of, I guess, not getting as much of a complete story as people are used to getting, and I'm learning to expect that more from creators. I think this was a pretty solid offering.
Yeah, and we can't forget the fucking epic pinup by Matt Baer in the back of the book of Terror.
Matt Baer,
he made the book. If that pinup wasn't in there, this book would have been a 7, maybe.
Who is Matt Baer?
Matt Barr. Bar Bear.
Damn it! If you say it, you have to drink. I was trying to
I'm trying to find the appropriate one to show right before I bring.
It's the one right before the Dan Lawless one with him struggling under the
black
rubble.
And white one.
The black and white joint with the ink wash.
All right, I've got that here. So I'll pop this up, and then I'll pop Vaughn into the stream. So
Hail, Maddie.
Welcome.
There we go.
Welcome, Vonster.
Hey
guys, how you doing tonight?
Howdy.
How's it going, man?
How are you doing?
It's all right. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, thanks for being here.
It's always awkward to like listen to people talk about your comic and come on. So
no,
you.
No, it's the most
Feeling
comfortable, fun thing I can think of doing.
I know.
Well, Red's
It's like a massage, you know.
Yeah.
Well, I like to start, usually when I bring people on, especially I've been waiting to interview you for a while. So I like to do background first, not just jump into like, let's pick up from the review and, go through all these points with you. So for me, Vaughn, I'm very interested actually in what's been your kind of progression to bring you all the way up through the ranks to being here in CG as like this really talented creator. I'd say you're definitely mainstream material in my estimation, but yet you're here and you're in the indies. And everybody's got like a kind of a unique journey on how they ended up exactly in this place among these crazy people. And I'm just curious, where did you get your start? And where were you first creating comics that made you decide you didn't want to work for any of the mainstream institutions?
Oh, great question. I when Ninja Turtles came out in the 80s, it's all I wanted to do was draw comics because of that. That's what got me in comic shops. That's what got me buying all the violent stuff like Punisher and Wolverine and all that goodness. And so I was always making comics throughout my life and then trying to do every other job other than making comics, which is so stupid. Like if I'm in my college and instead of studying, I'm drawing comics, like obviously I need to be focusing on drawing comics. You know what I mean? But I was always taught it was too risky. It was too, you wouldn't have what it took. Right.
Taught by who?
Just
who impressed that upon you?
Parents, friends who aren't really, supportive. Just everybody thought treated it like kind of a silly hobby rather than legit thing. And even I did that. I was selling myself short because I loved it. And but you always think I'm not going to be able to go pro with it. I wanted to try other things in life, and I did. I lived, and as I did, I made comics. And then for CG, I get out of school for film, and I make my choice right then and there after going through all kinds of horrifying experiences, having my scripts rewritten by SJWs, having all kinds of people just violate my writing and my visions of what I wanted to do. I was like, why go to LA and get my heart broken? Like, I want to do something else. Let's skip that. And as time goes on, I start realizing how much political, what should I call it, radicalism has been starting to take over our arts and suppress expression and ruin, things in our culture and turn it into their culture, like terraforming almost. And I've been watching this happen. As a guy who lived in Chicago, you kind of get to see leftist culture in action in front of you, all around you. It's like another world in the city. And I lived there for 10 years. I went to school there for film for Columbia College, Chicago. And that's where I learned how the left is not healthy and messing things up. So I went to this video game symposium that really red-pilled me because the whole thing was just activism and anti-white, anti-male.
Was that Sarkeesian time period or whatever when all that?
It was.
Anita Sarkeesian was.
Wow. It was around 2014, which is like Gamergate era, right?
Okay.
So Sarkeesian, Zoe Quinn. You start to find out these activists are like infiltrating things, and right, exactly. The first people to stand up were Gamergate.
Right.
You were saying that you got a lot of discouragement from friends and family. So I guess you didn't have a lot of artists in your life. What kind of environment were you growing up in? Was it mostly working class? Like what kind of professions?
Oh no, I grew up in a artful, beautifully designed environment. My parents were art and architecture nerds, and they loved art and surrounded us with fine art and stuff.
Interesting.
And but they built the house in the middle of nowhere in Norman, Oklahoma, away from everybody, which was great. So while I lived in this cool designy house, I was surrounded by fields and forests of tarantulas and rattlesnakes, and my mom's surprised I'm still alive to this day type stuff. We were in the country. So I got the best of both worlds, man.
But it was just comics that they derided then? They felt like it wasn't, I don't know.
I mean, they were always asking me if I was going to carry on the family. It was one of the family torch things. Like, am I going to go into medicine? Which a lot of my family does. And I was going to be a forensic pathologist and bust the bad guys, seemed like a cool idea at the time. But then I realized I didn't want to cut open little kid corpses all day, every day for a job. So, or a hobby, really. So I moved on to comics. What do you know? No, and it was so funny how comics were always just so much more like I could do them when times were tough. It was like therapy, I could save my own sanity in my life by doing like a good story and a good comic, getting it done. And so, it's when it came to Comicsgate, I mean, before it was even called Comicsgate, I was around and I was just starting to speak out against this stuff. And the timing was right. I found the right artist. I found Monica and I was like, let's do Monster MD. I knew we could have a hit. We did. I'm really proud of that book. I want to do more of that with her after Trenches. And yeah, it started to become Comicsgate. We took, as you guys know, and I was kind of already there for it. So I've always been a little contrarian, a little rebellious. It's in my nature. I don't take a lot of people or things seriously. and Comicsgate was, it's not like I chose it. I just was it. Like I was just there and part of the social groups before it was even called it. And I embrace it because I'm not worried about the mainstream. You asked, when did I decide I don't care? I mean, it was a really long time ago. I had decided that it wasn't for me, but it was definitely while in Comicsgate where I was like, I don't care if they call me or not. I don't really, really want them to. I like my freedom. And if there's anything I've learned after being an artist all these years and getting, your ass kicked and the rejection and the ways people treat you and the unsupportive people, who think you're nuts, like you should, you should be able to have your freedom of expression. You should be able to do stuff for yourself as an artist, or else what's the point? Why did you start drawing in the first place if you're not going to, do it to express yourself? So yeah, why worry about Disney when I could just watch the flames from here and do my own thing? And if they ever want to like actually be serious and make good books and stories, like I'll be here,
Well, where did you find the passion to feel, that you wanted to rebel against this extreme leftist conformity that you were being surrounded by and exposed to? Because a lot of people, they'll go along to get along. They just want the opportunities. They want the chance to do art and be paid a living wage for it. Why did it strike you so strongly to stand against that?
Their politics are destructive and divisive by nature, and it's all about power and rewriting our culture. I mean, it's not just statues they're toppling. When they grab a character and change it and make it the character more about their ideologies and politics and not about the actual character anymore, or what the character represented before, it's toppling another statue culturally. It's taking over. And and I when I see stuff like that, I get, what was my line? I mean, my line was definitely when I was in Chicago and I saw what they had done to video games, and then I started to see what they were doing to comics through YouTube criticisms and stuff. The original people, diversity in comics, and who were some of the other ones? Captain Cummings, and
Doug
stuff.
Cummings.
Yeah, the original, the
Englentine, what was the other one?
Englentine, yep.
And the Captain America mask, dude. Way before the other Captain America mask dude.
Captain Frugal.
Captain Frugal, that's it. Not Dean or whatever, Dane or whoever the modern Captain America villain is.
And I was like, I loved comics. I'm always in shops in Chicago, just getting finding cool, weird stuff. But I wasn't getting the mainstream stuff. I was all like Dark Horse more and not paying attention to Marvel and DC as much. I would get Walking Dead, stuff like that. I'd find indie stuff I dug. But I started to see what they were doing to comics. And I was like, this is insane. They're trying to indoctrinate a generation of kids just to vote a certain way and think a certain way and just be something that's inhuman and government worshiping. And I don't know. My family, they didn't tell me. My family never told me you got to be a certain way religiously or politically. They just let me find my own path. And for me, when I see which side is curbing expression.
Matt, I think you've got something going on with your audio. I'll mute him for a sec. No, Matt C.
Okay.
Yeah. So how did you find that compass independently? Because a lot of times people are brought to it, but it sounds like you happened upon it, and you helped carry that torch.
When I was making movies in school, I had a very special script that had won some awards. And when you're in school making this stuff, you're thinking, this is going to be this could be my future, a break-in type script. And the teachers had my script. They picked it to be a practicum film, which gets a budget, gets a director assigned, it gets everything. It gets a full production. They film it, and then we send it to festivals to show off how badass our school is. Right, and it could get you places. Well, they gave it to this little blonde-haired, blue-eyed SJW dude. He took my story about brotherhood, And I didn't even know the term SJW then. You know what I mean? I didn't even worry about political activism. I was just a college kid making art, trying to be good at it. But he inverted the message. It was about a stepbrother or two stepbrothers kind of hating each other and then finding like a bond by the end. And he gets it. He turned it into like white guys versus Native Americans, like the antithesis of brotherly love. And I started to see how, I mean, people change your expression and turn it into political tripe. So I had all these things happen. I've been censored since high school, so I've always had a big like chip on both shoulders about it too. They censored my Mother Goose poster for a Mother Goose play. They thought there was hidden secret imagery inside of it. You know, maybe there was. No, I'm just kidding. But, like,
Killers of the Flower Moon. That's kind of a big deal.
Like, okay, I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you. What'd you say? Sounds like I'm a poltergeist.
Whoa,
Yeah.
your mic is F.
You wanna jump out and come back in, Matt? Maybe might need to do some adjustments there.
Matt C
Walk towards the light, Carol Ann.
Yeah, we need to conduct an exorcism on Matt C's mic. It got possessed by Pazuzu there.
His head is currently spinning.
Kevin Costner in 1965 is sending that message forward, dude. That's what it sounds like.
Well, it sounded like you had a heartfelt, sincere, natural gravitation towards these more traditional attributes, these values, and you clearly weren't swayed by the romanticized propaganda of egalitarianism and false equality through social redistribution and all that. So it's interesting that it seemed organic. It seems very organic for you.
Well, organic's one nice way to put it. Or you could say I tried being a guy in my 20s and 30s and dated the women in Chicago. And by organic, that means I got, I went through hell trying to date liberal, perpetually offended feminazis.
Right.
Who like they don't know how to date anymore. And that took years of me just like banging my head against the wall going like, what's wrong with everyone in this town? All the women I meet are on all the medication. They all introduce themselves as their mental illnesses now. They're like, hi, I'm bipolar, I have anxiety, depression. Like, great. Nice to meet you. I got to get the hell out of here. But I was watching what leftism does to lives. And what it does to the culture. It makes for they were all very compliant people with their leaders. They don't care about corruption. They're cool with it. As long as like the city looks nice, the trains still run. And that one side, you could cross the street in Chicago. It'll be like war zone, bodies. I've seen guys with their brains blown out across the street from me where I was bouncing in clubs. Like it's a scary place, but you can cross the street and it'll be like really nice and nice places and sunny and trees and you're by the beach. You have a nice man-made beach. It'll distract you from the truth, But that's what Chicago was. All these people and living this non-truth, and I didn't want to be like them. I wasn't going to stoop to be in their social clubs. I tried to, of course I tried to have friends. Of course I tried to like overlook politics back then. Back then I wasn't, doing what I am now. I was a student, making films, trying to make connections. I'm more naive, had a lot to learn. And I guess I lucked out. A lot of bad things happened to me that helped teach me, what's really going down.
Made you yearn for the sound stability of ornate architecture and wild badlands surrounding you with rattlesnakes and all the things you experienced growing up.
That's exactly why in 2017 I came back home to Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Yeah. Where did you study forensic pathology before you decided to take the art path?
Well, I didn't
Chicago?
study it like fully. In Oklahoma. In college in Oklahoma, I had just started med school, but I didn't stay long. I did well, but all I did was draw comics and make T-shirts and posters and flyers for like all the organizations,
right?
And because it's just what I do, and people start asking you for to do it, and I was like, man, I'm into art. I need to do graphic design. That's a better job. It'll be a safe thing to do, So yeah, I didn't stick with that either. I ended up doing like a little bit of that.
Passion.
Exactly. Who would have thunk it? But I went to Italy and studied art there for a little bit and did like the semester there. And then when I came back, I dropped out and decided to wing it, and then moved to Austin and try to just do an entirely new life. And
Now you do
fuck
all the
college.
graphic design on your book though now, right? Like all these brick walls with the paint splatters and the blood and shit, like, and the fucking
blood's me.
really
Yep.
cool flyer at the beginning, the real life flyer, you know, where the book opens on.
Mm-hmm.
The
Yeah.
police pamphlet.
Fear City, baby. Fear
There
City.
you go. Yeah. So all that is you bringing back your graphic design shit and putting it to use in your work now. Then.
Wow.
Exactly. When I was early 20s and I left college, I even tried to start my own little graphic design business. You know, I wanted to do web pages, and this was like early 2000s. None of this stuff had blown up. The market wasn't just full of graphic designers yet. The internet was still like raw and fresh and interesting. So it was an exciting time. You felt like you could just start a business and do something crazy. So yeah, I've always like had a thing for just good, like I like design. And so I have to do it for my own books.
Your character
Yeah.
your character designs definitely got high marks and were mentioned early on in the review. It is one of your strong points for sure is getting that visual look like really dialed in.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that because I really work hard on it.
And Monster MD2 had a lot of awesome, accessories that came with it, all the different, the doctor degree and all the, you can tell your books really shine in that department. That supplemental material with your graphic design like flavor. That skill I'm sure helps you craft the Vaughn flavor too. That you talk about a lot.
When I was in high school and you're in bands in the 90s, I feel like almost everyone was.
Mm-hmm.
I was making our flyers, I was making our t-shirts, so it's always been with me ever since. So it's part of the fun for me, but also it is part of completing my vision, getting you into this world in ways other than just the art,
Right.
Gotta have that good art direction that kind of seals the deal.
Have you shown your work to your family and friends now that you're producing professional level projects?
Yeah. They love it. They love it. Or at least that's what they say. I'm not what they're supposed to say. I don't trust them. But
did you show them this Matt Bear pinup specifically?
Yeah.
Oh, they loved it. Loved it.
Okay, good.
Loved the Matt Bear.
Be sure to tell him that your family really liked that pinup, Matt. Good job, dude.
My little bro has recently become a comic fan again. Realized he's going through the moment in his life where he realized everything he loved at age 12 was awesome. So he's buying comics like crazy, and he read Terror, and he was like, "I want more. I want to see what happens. This is awesome." So, seal of approval. Look at that Matt Bear.
Yeah, killer. Matt just always busts balls about never getting credited. So I just want to make sure that like he's getting all the praise and flowers he's due.
It's a sweet piece. Yeah.
Can I just say I think it's interesting. How's my audio, by the way? Am I
better?
Yeah,
we can hear you. No, we hear you.
Okay.
Fine.
Yeah, sound
I
good.
don't know what that was. I think it's interesting. I mean, you spoke, I think, very fluently about your experiences in Chicago and your desire to get as far away as possible from the cultural developments there. And your answer to that, people find a lot of different ways to deal with that and process it, and maybe react to and speak against it, or kind of contribute to culture in a different way than what they're seeing their culture going. And correct me if I'm wrong, like the impression I'm getting is your answer is, I'm going to just make comics fun again, and I'm going to make them like, I'm going to give myself permission, I'm going to give the audience permission to enjoy violent comics, to enjoy comics that have really high octane fun, and really good character development. Like, and it's not going to necessarily be right wing comics or something. It's not necessarily like that's not where you're pushing your talents. Is that fair to say? Like, because that's kind of interesting that you spoke. You could have shown up and just said, "Hey, I just like I don't really know about culture. I don't really pay attention to it. I just like writing fun comics. And you could have probably produced something like this with that perspective, but your perspective wasn't that. You don't like leftism, and your answer is I'm just going to have fun in comics. So I was just wondering if you could, I don't know, if you want to speak to that, like that's your particular solution. That's what you've come up with, and that's kind of
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, I think that's what used to sell them. And if so,
Mm.
in a way, you could say what I'm saying is, why don't we just go back to what worked before?
Mm.
Um, what worked before for me when I was a kid walking into a comic book store for the first time was violence and pulpiness and cool anti-hero types. And
Hmm.
this book was my permission to do that. But you're right, in my work in general, I'm reminding people, like, let's have fun in comics. Let's not take it too seriously, but let's make story a priority that keeps you coming back, because that's just, I mean, we're in the story business. If it's not just the pretty picture business. And so it's hard. It's not easy to do what we do. And I want to lift the weight and work the longer hours to blow people away and make something and remind. It's not about, people always treat it like you have to come up with a new big thing. What's the next thing? What's the next thing? Like, man, the next thing is reminding people that going back to basics and what used to work is the next thing. Like, to me, it's the classics hold secrets that we've forgotten. My first day in film school was my teacher going, all of our movies that we put out of the school look perfect, great cinematography, lighting, costuming, everything's great, but the scripts are trash. We forgot how to write stories. And as I get older, I'm realizing our consciousness is going to suffer, and our culture suffers as we forget how to tell stories, as we forget parts of ourselves. Yeah, please.
Yeah, can it just, that reminds me of one of my favorite horses to beat, which is, I think in comics we're losing similar things as well. And one of the things we're losing and is the art of the layout, where you take a page and do something like what George Perez does and uses symmetry with paneling. And I've noticed that for creators who, and you're not the only who I've noticed this with, but like Narwhal and people who have a strong background in film, they often think about pages like film frames. And I'm wondering if that leads to a lot of the sort of frame a painting kind of idea with these like very large cinematic frames. And there is a strength to that in some ways, but there is also something being lost in how, the artwork with just the geometry of using different shapes of panels on the page and doing things of that nature. And so I think that there are also things we're losing in comics craft that I also think are going to be a shame when we lose them. And so I do like to just push as much as I can. I know I'm only one voice. I think Aldous and I are two voices. We like to push creators and say, hey, we want to see more of the of what comics can uniquely do, because film tells stories in its own way, and that's great. But comics is one of the only mediums where you can use the frames themselves in very, very unique artistic ways. Their shape, their paneling, their size, how they are, in symmetry with each other. And I think that we can do more. Sorry.
There's things only comics can do. And if you approach them like, oh, I'm just going to write a movie script and turn it into a comic, you're going to have a bad time. It's a different craft and a different art. And you're right. I mean, I think thinking outside the box and embracing things, we take just basic storytelling for granted, but when you do the right things with panels, I mean, that's when people can't stop looking at your comic and going back to it for years to come. When you do stuff, you can pull that off. So yeah, I have to agree.
What's something is there anything off the top of your head you could think of you've learned that comics can do that that film doesn't do or can't do as well? Like, like translating your skills from film to comics, like there's kind of like new tricks you've learned along the way?
Oh, hell yeah. Oh, hell. You know, one of my
Nice.
favorite Simple Tricks comics does? I love when two panels are matching each other and you can give it a comedic effect. Um, and in a movie, I guess you could do a match cut or something, but it just isn't the same.
Mhm.
Um,
You're talking about like
I-
in Killing Joke, where Alan Moore cuts from the fat lady to the fucking pregnant wife, you know, in those comical scene transitions that look like identical shots but different places or whatever, right?
Well, I was actually thinking where it's like you're kind of mirroring the previous panel, and you're doing it to effect. Because there'll be another line or some sort of like punchline in the next panel, or maybe just a slight face change or something like that. But I don't know. There's when I think about how in film we have the 180-degree rule, and in comics we can break it to effect and get away with
Yeah.
it without it jarring the reader too much because it's not moving. But in film, you gotta watch out for that, or else it just jars the hell out of people. That's another like difference. But I guess the best example I could give is a long time ago, as I was trying different things when I would make comics and make them in different ways. I did try the let's take one of my little film scripts and then turn that into panels. And that process versus what I do now when I actually write a comic script, I mean, it was a headache. it was painful. It was not built for what the comics do when it came to the dialogue fitting well and everything. It was I know some people do create that way though, because they want to be able to have a film script after they're done with their comic, like hello, they want to sell it or whatever. But I'm just like, I'm not into it. I'm more into the purity of comic craft, I guess, after trying it with the movie script.
So what drew you to this character, specifically Black Terror? Is it something you were familiar with from before?
No, I wasn't that familiar with him. I just saw like the coolest looking Golden Age character, but he wasn't cool. He had no presence on the shelves in comics that made him interesting or had any reverence for him. And when I read him, it was like no one knew what to do with him. They made fun of him for being a pharmacist. They made they just didn't know what to do. The stories all didn't even connect. He has no life. He has no real life, as he's not a person barely in some of this stuff I've read. I've read cool stuff with him, but it was all just kind of, he was an assassin and that was it. There wasn't much to him. And I'm like, how is a guy that looks this cool not cool? So I just started making this out of the love of it. What resulted was a lot of late night writing and jamming out on me just having fun writing my Dark Avenger epic. And when I was done, it was around 210 pages of just one big script. And so I was like, how could I do this book? I'm probably going to have to split it up. So that's how we turned it into 3 acts, so to speak. And
I think that helps explain a little about what we were noticing. Yeah.
Yeah, it's now if I was approaching a book, I probably would be more along the lines of more hard end arc, beginning, middle, end to satisfy. But when I wrote it, it was like, just 200 pages for the whole arc and just get people there and just take them down this horrible, dark night in Black Terror's life. So it's just, that's the way I wrote it. It's probably not the way I would write something now. But I really enjoyed it and for what it was and learned from it. And I think I grew as a writer from doing this. I felt cool. It felt good to pay respect to the character of Black Terror and make him, I don't know, build on him a little bit in ways other people haven't.
Yeah, find him a world and characters he can play against well. Yeah.
Right. I knew I had to have the right villain roster to make this cool and make people want to check it out, and I knew I wanted to give him more of a life, give him a wife that he used to have, make what gives him his power almost a drug addiction, something that kind of poisons him a little and maybe even starts to make him insane in the process. He's about to lose it. He's scared of that, but he knows he has to do what's right. I wanted him to be a conflicted, haunted hero. He definitely has the look for it, and I liked the idea that the skull and crossbones, he thought it was about scaring people or being like death or whatever, but really he's inhaling this toxin, this fear toxin, to be strong and make people afraid of him. So in a way, he's just, it's poison. He's a toxic dude. But what else can I say about him? To me, he was like the Punisher of World War II, you know? He was the guy you went to for your violence back in the day. And so he was, that's another reason he was perfect. When I saw what Dynamite had been doing with him, they were kind of mocking him. So it just made me more, you know, the contrarian of me spoke out. So it was just, I wanted to capture what brought me into comic shops as a kid too. So this was just a blast to do all around. Lady Satan was perfect because I wanted to do a Gun Witch Bayonetta style character for a while. And I had the term Gun Witch floating around my head, and I'm like, let's do that with Lady Satan. She'd be perfect. She's got the look. We could do it. So yeah, it was also, I mean, when I work on a project, what interests me about it is what I get to like learn from it too. It's the experience of it is something in and of itself. So with working on this, I got to get into fear, which was awesome. I mean, it was you learn about yourself. You ask yourself what you're afraid of. You ask yourself how people react in different fearful situations and how can you capture that in the story. So I got to explore a lot of cool things too. Well, hopefully adding my own cool little mythos to the character that people can
Most
dig.
of our listeners are afraid of Chicago.
That's
good. Yeah, I mean, I was at this party and I was standing there kind of, you know, awkwardly, as I do. And this lady was standing next to me, this like 350, 400-pound spoiled brat, nasty chick, spandex, rolls of fat, smoking a cigarette, blowing smoke on me, talking about how women are better than men at everything. And that's a fucking fact. You take that to the bank. Just saying all this, like, to me, what had become the new bigotry of America. And I was like, man, I got to get out of this place, man. This place sucks. These women suck. Like, good food, beautiful city. Oh, I could go on and on. I had some great times there too, but don't get me wrong. But I mean, I can't live in a leftist delusion. I have to be free. So, because the next day when Trump won, I had to go into work the next day and be like, oh, darn it. Oh, darn. Yeah, right, dude. It was awesome. But
I was grinning like an idiot for a week.
Yeah, that was. They were telling me how terrified they were, and I was just like, whatever. Terrified of lower taxes. Screw you.
So what's the future plans with Terror? When can we expect 2, or are you going back to Monster MD first, or how's it working out since with the Monica?
Would you guys like to see some of the opening pages from Trenches 2?
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Chat will love it.
I've shared them.
Nice.
So guys, the way I wrote it, I mean, you're totally right. It's a blue ball session and then some. I admit it. Like, it was kind of supposed to be. Yeah, you guys, please edge with me into Trenches 2, because I promise you there will be payoffs galore. He is up against the wall, even with his grinded meds. He's still feeling it. He's got no powers. And this sniper has him pinned down, and things are getting nasty. All right. This is Lock Shot. This is a sniper.
Go back. That page you just showed, that's the ender. Like that's not your ender. Let's get grinding, dudes, or whatever. Like, that's the end shot, man. That's all. Like,
you didn't like the turmeric ending.
That's all I meant, though. You know, that's the hype vibe. You know, of the like, dude, that's the panel.
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, I get it. I get you. I liked the idea just because it's going back to, like, he's a pharmacist. He knows what he's doing. He's trying to patch himself up for a moment. But you're right. Like, look at this. This is the shits. Like, this is death. He's on the edge here. So yeah,
I love those healing scenes in movies, like in Predator 2. Remember when he does all the fucking extensive surgery in that woman's sink and shit? Yeah, dude. Yeah. For sure,
burst through the door. Yeah, I love that scene. But yeah, it's a killer book. You guys, this Lock Shot battle, I mean, I feel like you're gonna dig. It's and then of course after her, you get your chainsaw guy. You get Sawback, the trapper, the badass who has Lady Satan out as bait for Black Terror. And Black Terror is still powerless too, and he's trying to fight his way through these crazies with superpowers out to kill him. So basically, I looked at the second part of the book, or book 2, as, higher gear, more powerful enemies, and more being revealed about Terra and his fears and his like what the weight he's really carrying within him gets revealed in this. Why is his wife haunting him? Why is the ghost of his wife haunting him and taking so much pleasure in his horror? What is going on here? What is the story with her? So you're going to find out a lot. It just gets deeper for the character as his fights get deeper. As I made this, I was like, man, I like fight scenes that just can be juicy. I like fight scenes that tell a story within the bigger story. So I hope these play out well and people can enjoy the hell out of them.
So you're actively developing this second issue of this 3-part trilogy. Well, that's redundant, but of your trilogy. And you're also crowdfunding, though, another campaign. Was that something that you wrapped up before and you wanted to get out there to people as you're also working on this?
Yeah, so with Kataru Witch Hunter, I made that just before Monster MD. And I looked back on it with scorn for a lot of time. I was like, it's just a book I made, whatever, move it on. But a lot of people who read it loved it. They told me I should try to print it. I ended up redoing the lettering, rewriting it to where I was like, this is gold. This is a fun book. This is a book that needs to be part of my library now. It looks great. It reads great. Cool little one-shot story, 58-pager. So yeah, and it's already done. So I was like, okay, cool. Maybe during World War III, an economic downturn, I should release this one so I don't get my balls kicked in too hard. So here I am with Kataru Witch Hunter, printing a cool ass book, and also offering an art book of my design work over the years called Necrovanicon, which I hope people check out. But yeah, man, this is the story of it's a murder mystery, kind of samurai supernatural tale about this world where there is witchcraft and demons around every corner, kind of a feudalistic Japan, a la Ninja Scroll or Lone Wolf and Cub, Blade of the Immortal. And these witch hunters detect and then execute these horrible witches, who, of course, look just like us until you get them cornered. And then they start to look like horrific monsters with razor blade tongues and, flame breath and poison dart shooting out of their faces, all kinds of fun stuff.
Nice.
So yeah, these witch hunters are trained from a young age and get the special gear to be able to detect them and take them out. Kataru's story, he's solving a murder of a mom whose body was hidden within a scarecrow. And in a sacrificial, ritualistic way, he realizes this must be a witch's doing. And so he's hunting down this murderous witch while people are watching him from all sides. The corrupt town is after him. It's great.
Is this how you typically work, where you have multiple projects in development simultaneously, or did this just happen to converge for you, where you could get this out as you're working on Terror 2?
It just kind of happened to converge. When I finished work, I am always working on multiple things. Yeah, never mind. Now that I think about it, because I just finished a outline for another story. I like to work all the time and juggle things if I can, because there's the work that becomes like work, and then there's the work that's just joy, and you up late at night laughing and having a good time knowing that you're making something killer and making something that's going to really move people. And so whenever I rewrote this, I was like, this is it. This is the level of book I want to make. This is, but it was the art had already been done and paid for. So I was like, dude, let's just put this out. Like, keep it a quick campaign. We could print it quick, get it to people quick. I'm an oiled machine at this point at fulfillment. Don't take that out of context, ladies. I'm just talking about books. And excuse me. And so basically, this is just a quicker campaign I wanted to do for a really cool book. And I also thought people would dig Necrovanicon. It's very personal, too. It's all my personal work of 23 plus years in design and comics and character design and
nice
T-shirts, everything, you name it.
What's your favorite part of working on a new property?
I think it's the breakthrough moments that give you that high. It's a drug whenever you realize what the character really thinks or feels on. I don't know. What's a good breakthrough moment? When I realized like for instance, I was working on the idea of psychic assassins for psycho killers, and my main character, I was like, I wanted to take astral projection where you project your body in a psychically away, from yourself. And I was like, what if a guy could turn that astral projection into a bullet and shoot that down a gun and kill someone from far away? Like, and I loved that idea. So these ideas, right? And then of course the gun like doesn't have any bullets fired through it. It was just psychic stuff. So like you're not going to get busted. You get away with it. And then you cheer. You get this rush. You came up with an amazing new idea that you haven't really seen or heard of before, and you think it's going to really entertain people. That's when I get happy. That's when I get excited to show this to everybody, so to speak.
So it's inspiration that drives you when you're making these.
When all the ideas converge and you know it's going to make for a killer story and fun for your readers but move them. Yeah, it's because guys, for me, like I don't have a lot of social people. I don't have a lot of friends in my life. I don't have a lot of people in my life, and maybe it's for the best. I don't know, but like with these books, I'm able to feel a little more connected to people when they like them, when, they enjoy a little story I wrote or whatever, or can relate to the problems the characters have that they write about. I don't know. It becomes a way of reconnecting with a world that I both love and intensely dislike, because I've fed up with humans, but I also absolutely find humans awesome. Like I love humanity, and every story I make, I get to learn a little more about it. And so this whole thing for me creating it is about the experience too. I am chasing the dragon of trying to always make like the best, most awesome stories, but I'm learning more about people as I create stuff without having to deal with them too much. If that makes sense.
Yeah, it's the wanting to give them something unique that they haven't ever experienced before, right? And that's the way that you want to touch their lives, by maybe giving a bit of that inspiration that you felt over to them as they see your work and get inspired by it.
I would hope so. Yeah, I hope so. Or, the characters that I write about, they got problems, and we all do. And so, I mean, it's about the blues, man. We're all singing the blues in the end of the day. Okay. I'm just trying to entertain the hell out of people and remind them too that violence and sex are awesome. And they're you could censor them all you want in all forms of entertainment, and it's still going to be part of the human experience. Sorry. Right. Might as well make it interesting and have fun with it.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Absolutely.
Kataru is definitely more manga inspired, but it's much more, it's not weebery, it's Vonnery. It's still a very grim, gothic, punky garage rock book. So
nice. Do you want to tease us with any other projects that you've got currently in the cooker, or are you just focused on Terror 2?
Ooh, good question. What else could I tease you guys with? Let's see. I mean, Eric Weathers and I are going to start working on a pretty epic tale that we were talking about. It's something called Headless Norseman. Wow. It's going to be my heavy metal Viking Valhalla, or more like Ragnarok epic, with a headless Norseman at the center of it, causing trouble, doing epic things. So it's going to be cool.
What's Eric doing for that, other than lettering? I'm sure.
Yeah, lettering and painting. He wants to paint every panel, or at least try. Who knows what we've only, it's like a baby. We just started. So it's like, who knows where the art direction could go, but we're starting character designs for this. I pitched the story he liked. We're starting that. So yeah, look out for that. That's going to be, I mean, every panel is going to be like a freaking Judas Priest cover. I swear. It's going to be so cool. We got what
Eric's painting is legit. I've seen him paint airplanes and shit like that. Like he showed me a long time ago, and it's like, damn, your painting's fucking dope, dude. So
well, the thing that's so interesting about Eric, and I've been telling him this for years, is that when he sketches and paints, the looseness he brings a whole nother energy to his work that people respond to. It's just good. There's something else to it, and he doesn't get it himself. He admits it. He's like, I don't get it. But like, yeah, when he's free and loose, I mean, it's like a whole
That's
next
literally
level era.
exactly what he said, though. When I said those, like, I don't know why people like
I don't know
these.
what.
Yeah.
Exactly.
How do you find the collaborative environment in CG? There's a lot of like-minded people that are equally awesome, or do you have to search them out and find those diamonds in the rough?
I mean, as artists, I think we're all like looking at each other, checking each other out. It's like like people in a sport, like sizing each other up, estimating. But I don't know. I kind of like let it naturally fall into place, and I end up getting all these jobs working with awesome people. And sometimes I'm offered jobs, like I did a crossover with Black Terror and Judex recently. And
Oh yeah.
I never even I didn't really know those guys or had worked with or anything.
Yeah,
But I mean, working with them was great. It was just cool. So it's sometimes it's random. Sometimes it's people that I've talked to for a bit. Like Matt and I got to do Tiger Blue. And that was, I've been waiting to work with him. It was exciting, but I already knew him and knew he was putting out good stuff.
We
So
had
it was,
that
like, exciting,
we had that Comicsgate writers room with Narwhal and you and Cal and a bunch of us, like way back in 2018 or like it was forever ago. Yeah, man. Like me and Vaughn have known each other in the creative place since the beginning of the CG shit, at least, man.
What happened with that room? Did it crumble and fall, or does it still exist in some form?
I'm sure it deleted forever ago, like in a haze of rooms that came and went.
Yeah, most likely.
Is it hard? Sorry, go ahead, Matt.
Go ahead. I was gonna say I'm not even on social media anymore, so I have no idea, man.
Yeah,
but that room was around back in the day.
Is it a challenging to maintain creatively collaborative environment in the social media space? Because like if you're working for a company, your boss comes and says you guys got to work together, and you just grind it out even if you can't stand each other. But here everybody kind of has to get along, which is tough in such an open Wild West environment to be able to make these books collaboratively. So what is that like?
It's like being in a punk band. Like there's a camaraderie there's a shoulder to shoulder camaraderie to like, we're kind of in this trench together. We got to like grind, but not everyone necessarily has that attitude in the arts. The arts it's chaos. Like it can be chaos even with cool people. It's so weird. If you just cooperate and work together, you can make greatness. You can make such cool stuff in comics, but I haven't run into too many problems with somebody being a prima donna in CG. That's what's cool. Like if anything, for the most part, I can't even think of very many bad experiences at all. Like people have been cool and our books have come out. Narwhal and I did Cave Slave. Matt Fowler and I did Tiger Blue 2. I did Psycho Killers with Gifted Rebels. These are all coming out, and the experiences, all differ. They're all so different, but they're all awesome in their own way. These are great people. These are great. A lot of these are cool artists that are undiscovered in their own right. So in my estimation, I'm just honored to get to work with them and jam with them. I look at it like I'm jamming in a bunch of different bands and having a great time, to be honest.
Yeah, you're working the strength of CG, which I think is the fact that it's a very effective network. There are a lot of contacts to make here, and definitely a lot of very interesting people to collaborate with. But you got to know how to, maneuver it a little bit to be able to do that. So,
well, you can't let anyone who you work with's enemies be your enemies by default. Like it's like the Eric Weathers method of just not staying, Switzerland or whatever, like staying out of the shit, right?
It's like you don't have to. You're not necessarily standing by someone's side if you just hate who they hate. You're ending up like costing yourself possible friendships or jobs in the future, right? I mean, it's kind of like in LA, even though they're all scumbags, you don't hear them talk that much trash about each other because you never know where your next job is going to come from. That is the attitude I approach it with.
I feel like Eric Weathers has like unique leverage because without him, like, how many projects would simply not be able to be made because he does like all the top tier projects. I feel like he does the lettering on them, so he's uniquely situated to be like the Swiss bank
For sure, but like he can do Cyber Frog at the same time he's doing Earthworm Jim or Bigfoot Bill or whatever. You know,
That's what I'm saying. Like I'm saying, like
Yeah.
he's uniquely positioned because like who else you gonna go find to do your lettering?
Lettering embargo. He could do it. Yeah. It's also, I mean, who's got time for all that, man? A lot of I like to make comics. I like to work. And so I've had people even recently be like, so whose side are you on? Oh, if you're on their side, I can't be on a stream with you. And I was just like, really? Really? This thing that's gonna pass, this internet nonsense is gonna pass in like a day? Really? So it causes more problems than it solves in the end of the day. Yeah. I just want to have fun and jam out with my homies and make good art with some cool people before I pass. I mean, there's not much time on this earth to do that. And to me, the scene is better when all the artists are kind of like partying together and inviting everyone rather than like, hey, I'm in my faction and you're in there, yours. You stay over there. Like it can ruin the fun. But I'm in the lucky position where I have worked for so many different cool people in CG, from John Malin onward. He gave me my first job. And who else? I mean, just
you and Cal won the contest, right? The Graveyard Shift Writers contest or whatever back in the day, man. I remember that.
Yeah,
shit.
yeah, remember that? That was interesting. That was something else. So
exciting times, though, right? Like the potential
Definitely.
energy and future was just so like it was exciting times back then, man, for sure.
Yeah. Got to bring it back. Bring it back.
Can it come back?
Doesn't get us. It'll never be the same, but you can get people happy and excited again, right? You can and you can make exciting projects. You can get people talking about comics again and fandom again. But I don't know if we need to be more. I feel like we need to be more dangerous with our books, but I don't know if the story's good enough. The comic fans will show up. They will. I know we've seen it happen. So it doesn't have to be my style. I just like to do my thing, like keep that alive, like Danzig and the Misfits do, like the horror punk that kind of inspires me in my work, that inspires my direction. But at the end of the day, my writing, hopefully it's not just cool pop culture and imagery. It'll have more of a human edge that people can relate to and get into. And because to me, all this time with my stories, I'm trying to build my house out of bricks instead of straw, if that makes sense. I'm trying to have a lot of titles that have my name on it, that are solid, that have people going, okay, that's cool. Oh, like Psycho Killers, oh, we did that. And build something slowly over time. It's because I'm not on YouTube as much. I should be on it more. I could maybe build things better. I'll try to be on more, but it's, I've been trying to do it through just solid books all this time. We'll see. We'll see.
Well, that's actually that's a good point, and something I wanted to raise is you kind of hold a unique position where you're not like a big YouTube presence, as you said, but you have a book that funded nearly to 6 figures, and the only other person I can think of that's done that is Roquefort, but he has a name, and you're in the indie space, and yet you've managed the same feat. So, what do you attribute that success to? How did you pull that off, basically?
Monster MD was, I mean, it had people talking. It had a lot of people saying it was their favorite book in CG. It was something, and maybe that helped. But I just think when you see what I'm doing and you get it, I mean, it can compete with anything on the shelves. I know my art team. I know Monica and Tiago just killed it on Trenches.
Yeah,
I mean, it was like a match made in heaven. I knew we were cooking. So although I can't deny like the solid art, I think the art direction and people seeing me do something with a Golden Age character, that's a risky thing to do. I'm just going to take this Golden Age character and people don't even see the point, right? Why do that? Why not just do your own character, bro? You're pushing a boulder uphill, but I tried to use it to my advantage to kind of remind people like, hey, this stuff worked. This stuff is cool. Black Terror can be cool. He can be just a high T badass. In the comics these days, he was like some sort of ghost pirate thing. Like he has pirate sword and
with the long boots or whatever, the fold
Yeah.
over like 70s
Like,
Captain
what?
America, the pirate boots.
I'm gonna defend
what?
the Golden Age version. He's not that bad.
Well, Golden Age version
What
is
a
still
lame defense.
cool for the Golden Age. But I mean, when I see him in today's comics and he's like putting on pirate, I'm just like, if he doesn't come in on a ghost pirate ship, it's not cool. Do something piratey with him then. But I don't see the point because he's also a pharmacist. Like instead, like I made him a pharmacist, but his powers come from a drug on his belt that he's having to pop all the time. Like he's addicted or something, and getting addicted to power is a very real treacherous thing,
Oh, was that not in the original? He wasn't huffing gas in the
No,
No,
No.
he got the powers from he got the powers from chemical fumes. That was a thing,
Right.
and it was
Oh,
something
was it?
that
Formic
was like
ethers.
yeah, and it was like pre World War II or pre
Formic
the
ether.
end of
That's
World War II, back when we didn't know that gas chambers and all the rest of that was going to be a
Oh.
very, very negative aesthetic. So this was pre that, it was pre us. It was I think right before we got into the war, actually, when this character I think got introduced.
And
right
there
around
was
that time.
there was no fear gas aspect though. That's added.
That's new.
And
That's new.
and he didn't use it every time. Like it was just a one-time thing. Like
Right.
that addictive quality, like drug use thing is fucking rad though. Like that adds this whole dark edge or
It
like
does.
consequences to using the power almost or whatever.
Right.
That wasn't in the original. So I dig it.
Right. It stayed true to the fact that he inhaled something to get powers, but I took it somewhere else. Before it just sounded, it was just like he inhaled it once and was like strong and durable forever, and life's great. Formic ethers. That's all you need. What's interesting is I was thinking about why Black Terror made the gas in the first place, and he made it to help himself get stronger to take on some local thugs or whatever. Classic, just
He did to impress the
superhero.
woman. He did it to impress the
Right.
woman.
Right.
It's
But it's like, isn't it more cool if he does that, but it turns him into Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde instead of just a superhero, That's more interesting to me, and that's kind of what my terror became. I wasn't even thinking about Jekyll and Hyde when I wrote it, but it is kind of that.
Well, and you mentioned that you wanted to see these projects explore more dangerous territory and push boundaries. What are some of the areas that you would like to see people venture out into with their independent projects? What entices you and excites you if people were putting out those kinds of books?
I want new characters to continue to read about and care about for a while that have more going on than just face value stuff. I want the type of art and action that brought me into comics in the first place. Now they all sit and have tea and stuff and talk about their genders and stuff. I feel like
I pictured a panel of a Marvel comic with that happening. So like, man, yes,
it's just true. And it's like I want us to understand that American comic style doesn't have to be so what we've seen before. It's done. We've done all kinds of cool things. We don't have to genericize it. It could be we can do something new and exciting and awesome with it. But in a way, I still have this conservative, I guess, if you want to call it that, belief that going back to the basics, the classics of what used to work. Because when I look at older comics, it's like kind of what you were talking about earlier. The panels, some of the artful things they do with panels, some of the artful things they do with the storytelling. I mean, I miss it. And so I'm not saying like I'm Mr. Old Fashioned. I'm saying like, no, it just worked. It made for entertaining pulp entertainment. And if we could bring it back and make it exciting, but put it with the right characters that maybe teenagers can care about, because teenagers see all the superhero shit as just their dad's comics, right?
It's just, hey, that's my dad's. And it's like, even though those comics characters are cool to me and I love them and I'll always adore them and read them, it's like, what is going to be the new thing? I'm not leaning towards superheroes for what I like. For years, I wasn't even reading superheroes. I was reading like The Goon and a lot of manga and just going back to like old Ninja Turtles and stuff. So
I was going to say that this book, it strains the definition of a superhero book. Actually, I was actually when I was trying to classify it, I don't even know if it's
like the Goon does, I guess, and like Punisher does.
It's definitely, it's not, because a lot of the typical things we associate with superheroes that are very strong signifiers for the genre, you are pushing against in a boundary pushing kind of a way. And it's, I'm not saying it's not a good story. I'm just saying that like it definitely pushes this outside of, I think, the typical superhero genre. And I'm the basic superhero enjoyer, so that does put me in slightly uncomfortable territory, but that can still be a good story. I'm just,
Right. It was so weird. I never thought for a second I'm writing a superhero story. It was just, I'm writing the Dark Avengers. I did think Dark Avengers story, but I was just writing like what the kid in me wanted from comic shops when I first went in, and what I thought Black Terror deserved as a character. So, yeah, I guess I did, without even thinking about it much, challenge a lot of tropes of heroism. I wanted a hero who's scared to go back, because he could just become the black-eyed butcher that kills the world. Like, he could become the antithesis of what he was doing this for. Instead of he's the protector, he's now the destroyer. And I just love that. I feel like within me, with my own angers, frustrations, and stuff, you could, and just as being human, it's very easy to fall from creator into destroyer. And so it was cool to me because he's a pharmacist. Years ago, I read that pharmacists were the most trusted person in a community. Statistically, that's probably changed now. But they were the most trusted person in a community. And so I thought of this Black Terror that like leaves the horrors of chopping people up in war and losing his mind and getting high on terror gas, and becomes a healer for a little while. And I don't know. I just love all those things I get to play with. Now I'm totally rambling. Sorry.
That's rad.
Well, I'm thinking that what you were saying about trying to restore, some of what has been lost in the comics medium. I just feel like that can be stated generally for like all of art, where that unbridled creativity, it's just not there anymore in the bastardized corporate product. Like, it's just been so whittled down for so long that this eventual outcome that we're dealing with now, where people have to ponder their genders, I think is just the fact that they're just creatively totally bankrupt, and there's just nowhere else left for them to go. So yeah, I think you have to tap into that aspect of what's cool and what really drives and inspires telling these stories and finding new life for them. And it's only going to happen here in the indies. It's definitely not going to come out of any kind of, mass produced and mass consumed, shill thing. So, yeah.
Do you guys pay attention to your music history? Before it was big, it was raw and in a small little bar with only like 15 people watching it.
Right. Exactly.
That's just the way this rolls. I don't mind being in that bar and jamming out with all these different cool people, but I really do hope to find a wider audience for my work to this, because it would satisfy me more. It would, it's something I do want to grow, but at the same time, it doesn't mean I'm not already doing what I love and that I don't appreciate it, because I do. I remember after Monster MD was successful, there was that moment where I was in bed with 3 broken ribs and
Joe Biden just gets inaugurated into office. I get a phone call that I've been fired from my job, doing the videos and photography and social media and everything for this company. So I had to make the decision to do Black Terror then and bet everything on this book. And I did. And it paid off. It really did. And it was putting everything on myself too. And it was a good moment, but it was a scary moment, but but I'm doing what I love and I'm getting paid for it. And people seem to be digging it. So it's like, I can't complain. Right. It was good that all went down. I had to go through those tough times. It was good. I went through my own dark times to make this book, but I do promise you guys, you're going to get too many fight scenes in book 2. It's going to be too many. Maybe you'll get mad at me for that. I don't know. We'll see. We'll just have to see. But I promise you the brutality is right. It's right there in the first pages, and it gets even nastier as the story progresses. I wanted it to be one of those heroes journeying to the bottom of the abyss and just touching it and seeing if we can get him back to the top just in time before he loses it forever. That's what I'm going for here. It's not how I would write something now, but I mean, just back when I created it, I remember it was like late nights and I'd broken up with this chick. And I'm like, yeah, who cares about people? I'm hanging with Black Terror in the trenches, That's like your story idea. Oh, what?
This is your Scud, the disposable assassin story.
Is that all related to your ribs getting broken and the chick breaking up with you? Those two events coupled, or
were the ribs broke in the breakup? Yeah, that's a good question.
Yeah.
No, actually, the breakup was no. You're right. Okay, this is gonna sound so bad, but I promise it's not bad. So the breakup was when I wrote Black Terror, but I hadn't gotten fired from my job yet. Black Terror, like everything I do, it's in a folder, chilling on my computer, and I'm going, should I do this? Should I not do this? I was still not 100% on running a campaign on this book. It was just something I did for the love and for the frustration of Black Terror not being cool when he should be cool. But then, yes, I broke my ribs, and then soon after, my girlfriend and the other girlfriend and I, the new one after we broke up. And so I was like broken up with, jobless, broken ribs. But I knew I could cook with this team on trenches. And I knew I
remember, I think I called you and I was like, yo, man, do you need help with fulfillment if you just broke a rib? I remember reaching out, man.
That's wild.
3 ribs, man. They've been wounded for years from bouncing, getting into fights and things with bouncing. I had broken ribs in Chicago on the same side. So this time I had busted them again. And I actually have a broken one right now as I talk to you guys. This sounds really weird. I know.
Jeez.
I do. I broke it like a few days ago, and I'm still fulfilling things.
I'm not even asking questions anymore. I'm just gonna assume.
I swear I'm not made of glass usually, but there's this side on this side of me. If I make the wrong moves and lift the wrong thing, wrong angle, pop, don't stop. It sucks. I hate it. So yeah, but I'm gonna get these things fulfilled, get the books out. Life goes on. You can't do anything about a broken rib. You just gotta roll too. Just don't sneeze. Okay.
Try not to breathe too hard either. So it's like keep those breaths shallow. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, that's a good point. I think for us to wrap things up on, and pick it up again sometime in the future. So you still got Psycho Killers. I've actually got that laying on my desk as well. Got to get to that review too. So we'll definitely talk again, Vaughn. It's been great having this discussion. What kind of things, other than your current campaign and Terror 2, what else do you want us to look forward to from you? What's your grand vision for the future, and what would you like to pitch to the audience that you're going to be delivering?
I just started work with this new younger artist on a book called Death Slinger, and it's just in Vaughn fashion. It's punky, macabre, goth girl lead who starts to learn she's from a family of necromancers. It's me doing kind of a clever, unique take on necromancy with awesome fight scenes. But I'm doing necromancy my way that people I think are gonna just love. And it's essentially a story about a girl
You
who's
push
had
the
her
bounds of
life.
necromancy.
Well, necromancy always seems so like, how do I put it? Like it could be so cool and sexy, but instead it's like old wizards and like corpses coming out of the ground, right? And that's fun. That's fun and all. But like, what if people could use just dead parts in general, like grave dust and things to, I don't know, maybe like manipulate people into doing what they want them to do if they inhale a little of it, or having maybe a certain animals that live off of the dead, like carrion and stuff.
It
Birds
just
and
cracks me
bugs
up.
will do what you
It just
want.
cracks me up, the pushing back against the norms of necromancy. This isn't your granddad's necromancy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I was like, how do we like? What if we made it like the cool, sexy thing where different necromancers specialize in different things, and some might be more bone related, while other ones, the osteo mancer, right? And then you've got some that are more that do other things with dead tissue. So there's one guy, he smokes the whole time he fights, and he's exhaling dead lung tissue onto the air. Before you know it, you're hallucinating, or he hides into the smoke. He's kind of they call him a smoke slinger, like things like that. Like, what if we could do things with dead tissues we didn't think about before? Because I used to be obsessed with death. Obviously, I was going to be a forensic pathologist. So it's like, what if we could make necromancy something more creative and cool and clever than just, rise from the grave zombie and do my bidding. Anyway, whatever.
Can we shoot bone dust through a gun in a way that
that was the original idea of it was Western necromancy, and the guy would just dip his gun into satchels on his side of like bone dust, and then boom, 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 boom. Yeah. Death, that hits the name Death Slinger. Yeah,
it does. Yeah, that's
great.
That's right on brand.
Yeah,
I was gonna say shooting bone dust into goth chicks is my specialty. So, I mean,
bone dust is what we're calling that.
Gosh.
It's dry. Sounds dry, Matt.
All right, guys. So look forward to more bone dust in the next
Yeah.
reviews. And it was great having you on, Vonster. We thoroughly enjoyed talking about your book. Thank you very much for putting it out and giving us the opportunity to review it and coming on and spending a little time with us to talk. So
it's been
appreciated
nothing
that.
but a pleasure. Nothing but a pleasure. And you guys your analyses are awesome. You're very you guys are way deeper than me about comics, and I try to learn what I can. So I appreciate you guys, and thanks for the critique.
Keep them coming, man. We'll keep reading them.
Yeah, it was
Thank
great.
You
Awesome. Thank you.
Will do.
Thank you very much to the reviewers, Matt C., Matthew Fowler, and Twitless, and everybody in the audience. Have a good night. We'll see you all again really soon.